Good evening and welcome to the Town Board of the Town of Ossining work session for Tuesday, February 4th, 2020. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so before we start with our work session agenda for tonight, I would like to share a few announcements. First, some very exciting news. We anticipate being able to launch our food scrap recycling program in the coming days, with kits available for sale at the Green Ossining booth at T-Town's Eagle Fest this Saturday, February 8th, and at the Cedar Lane Arts Center starting Monday, February 10th. They're not going to be available every day, so please visit our dedicated webpage for this program at ossiningcomposts.org to learn more and sign up for the mailing list. Just as a reminder, if you live anywhere in the town of Ossining, including the village of Ossining and most of the village of Briarcliff, you are eligible to participate in this voluntary program. Even if you aren't looking to purchase a compost kit this weekend, Eagle Fest is an absolutely amazing event celebrating the bald eagle's winter migration to the Hudson River. This is T-Town's 16th annual, and I was privileged to participate in the press conference a couple of weeks ago where our own Brookside School students got to meet Aurora, a bald eagle that was saved in the Midwest and is now not able to fly, but is a great help in educating everyone about the need to be excellent, lifelong stewards of our environment. The event is at Croton Point Park from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. this Saturday, and you can still get pre-sale tickets online until tomorrow at midnight. Just go to ttown.org, and there is a button for Eagle Fest. They are bringing back bus tours this year, too. And there's bird of prey shows, films, food trucks, historic walks, viewing of wild birds, including eagles, through scopes, and lots for the family to do in heated tents. But we are also anticipating some great weather, so come one, come all. Assemblywoman Sandy Galiff has a town hall meeting scheduled this week on Thursday, February 6th from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Briarcliff Manor Public Library. Join Assemblywoman Galiff to learn more about what has been going on in state government, what is proposed for the state budget for this year, and to advocate for your priorities. Bring your questions, ideas, and suggestions. Our very own Receiver of Taxes, Honorable Holly Perlowitz, and Town Clerk, Honorable Suzanne Donnelly, are going to be even more honorable as the guests of honor at the Greater Ossining Chamber of Commerce's Business Before Business Breakfast at the Tasty Table next Tuesday, February 11th from 8:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Come meet your local elected officials and learn all about the services provided by these offices to the entire town of Ossining. The U.S. Census 2020 is gearing up this month, and they are hiring. Learn more about potential job opportunities at a job fair here in Ossining, hosted by Ossining's Census Committee, Ossining Counts, coming up on February 12th at the Community Center from 1 to 6 p.m. in the museum lobby. They recently increased the salary, I believe. I think it's around $23 an hour for enumerators. That's pretty good pay. The Ossining School District and the National Honor Society's annual Senior Citizens Valentine's Day breakfast is coming up Friday, February 14th, Valentine's Day, at the Joseph G. Caputo Community Center. For more information, you can contact Bradley Morrison with the school district at 762-5760, or Kathy Asaro, who is our Senior Nutrition Director, at 762-1350. This event is always a sweet way to kick off Valentine's Day and a wonderful way to hear talented musicians from our very littlest to the most accomplished in our school district. Save the date, Saturday, February 15th at 12 noon for more fun on the river when Galata House is hosting its third annual Escape from Sing Sing plunge into the mighty Hudson at Lewis Engle Park. Register now or become a sponsor. The proceeds fund local families in need, plus scholarships for local high school students, among the many deserving causes the Galata House supports. And yes, I will be plunging. Pics or it didn't happen. Janet Brand, I see you in the back. Are you plunging? I don't know. We'll see. You did it. And it was a good thing. It was a good thing that you did. And do any of my board colleagues have any other announcements? Hearing none, do you want to do one more plug for VITA program? Come on, every time until
Okay.
April.
VITA program, which is the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program, is taking place at IFCA. Call 914-941-5252 to make an appointment, or we have walk-in hours on Monday, but call to get more information.
Awesome. All right. So for our work session agenda this evening, we have a presentation from CVE North America regarding a proposal they recently sent to the town to develop a Tier 3 solar installation at 9094 Somerstown Road in the town of Ossining. This is the first proposal before the town since we adopted our solar code in December of 2018. Before I turn it over to CVE and their attorneys, I would like Town Council Christy Adana to explain the process established in our recently adopted solar code and how the legislation addresses proposals like the one before the town from CVE. Council Adana.
So Supervisor, as you mentioned, back in 2018, it came to the town board's attention that there was nothing in the town code that regulated solar energy systems. And given that this is an up and coming type of development, the town board decided to undertake the process of considering to adopt a local law in order to ensure that there was adequate land use review for these types of projects that were coming before the town, and also to ensure that there was a mechanism to have it go efficiently. Using a template from NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Agency, in August 2018, the town board opened a public hearing and held several public hearings, hearing comments from the public of varying interests, as well as holding work sessions in order to review and modify the template to be more tailored to the town. The public hearing was kept open for 5 months until December. As the town supervisor mentioned, it was then closed and adopted. The local law did divide solar energy systems into 3 tiers, the third tier being the largest, which includes solar farms and those solar energy systems with the total surface area of the solar panels that are greater than 900 square feet. So as part of the way this local law was configured, for these tier 3 energy systems, a floating zone was created. So the local law looked at the districts in the zoning code and determined which districts would be potentially eligible to be placed in this zone. The floating zone itself did not affirmatively rezone any particular property. It just identified those zoning districts in which the properties could potentially be eligible. But it would require an applicant to come in with a specific proposal and application in order to be considered before the town board. And so that's what CVE is doing. They have a specific proposal for the property 9094 Somerstown. And so they're making this initial application and presentation to the board this evening for the board's consideration as to whether it wants to consider rezoning of the property to be included in the solar energy tier 3 floating zone. In addition, if this project were to go forward with the land use review process, there would initially have to, I could speak more about this later, but in addition to an environmental review under SECRA, the planning board would also have to grant a special permit and site plan approval, and the architectural review board, which consists of the same members of the planning board, would also have to give their approval.
Okay, fantastic. So before we launch into the presentation, does anybody have any questions about that part of the process with our code laid out for the tier 3 systems for Council Adana?
I thought tier 3 also. Oh, Bob. I thought tier 3 also included any wooded areas.
I would have to double check. I mean, for the purposes of this, I don't think there's any disputing that what the applicant is here proposing is a tier 3, but okay. It's defined in the code as solar farms and any solar energy system that is in tier 1 or tier 2.
Okay. I'll go back and look.
Okay.
This is tier 3. So
yeah. So for the purposes of tonight,
it's
yeah.
Okay, matters. Okay. Okay. So without further ado, I would invite representatives from CVE to come up and make your presentation. Welcome.
Good evening, Supervisor Levenberg, members of the town board. My name is Annie Klein. I'm an associate at Dalbello, Donnell & Weingarten, Wise & Whitaker. Here tonight on behalf of CVE North America in the application, as was just mentioned, for the Tier 3 solar energy system and the Tier 3 solar energy system floating zone. With me is Laura Perschke from Tectonic and Travis Scott from CVE. CVE North America is a subsidiary of CVE Group, which is an international independent power producer, and they develop, finance, build, manage, and operate their solar energy systems. They've been operating in the United States since 2017, primarily in Massachusetts, but they're very excited for the opportunities here in Westchester County, and particularly at this property. I understand you visited the property last week. It's 2
A
lots.
couple of us.
Okay.
All of us and not all together.
Okay. It's 2 lots, 9094 Summerstown Road. It's approximately 16 acres total between the 2 lots. As part, Laura can go into more specifics with the drawing, but as part of this application that would be before the planning board, we are looking to reconfigure the lot lines between the 2 lots to preserve the existing house at 90 Summerstown Road, and also to preserve some of the environmental features on the property. So the project will comply with the dimensional and special standards of the zoning ordinance and Tier 3 energy systems. Travis can talk about the community solar program, but CVE is very active in the community solar program, and that would benefit town residents with lower energy costs. The property, the buffer area, will preserve the visibility from the road. The trees will remain in the buffer area, and so you won't be able to see the site from the road. And so I'll hand it over to Laura to go over the specifics of the site plan with you, but we look forward to working with you on this project.
Hello. So just further elaborating on the site plan, she spoke a little about the subdivision part. The existing parcel with the residence on it is a sort of a flag-shaped lot at this point. So they are considering extending their center lot line down and giving that portion to the undeveloped lot for the solar farm. So that would increase the area in the back, allowing us to extend more solar panels on the southern side and still meet the setbacks from the wetland that's there, and also 100 foot from the property line. So for the access to the site, we're proposing an access road on the northeast corner because the entire northern part of the parcel has a wetland. So the construction of that access road will require a wetland buffered permit. And then in order to mitigate the disturbance of the steep slopes, since there is a big, quite a steep slope in the center of the property, we split the solar array between the lower northern end and the higher southern end. And because of the difference in grade and the shading, it will have to be cleared between the two. So we will also require a steep slope permit. And then also a tree clearing permit for the entire area where the solar array is. It's around 3.2 acres. So since the disturbance is over an acre, we will also require a stormwater pollution prevention plan. And we've also shown some preliminary areas for stormwater management practices that we will further develop with the detailed design, which are shown in the corners there. And we, like Annie said, we have preserved the 100-foot buffer around the entire site, which will remain wooded, so you will not be able to see it from the road. And I think, yeah, that's it. So I'll hand it back to Annie, sorry.
So we're happy to answer any questions. If you'd like to hear from Travis about CVE generally, or yeah, okay.
Hello. So yeah, basically, CVE operates internationally. Most of what we do internationally isn't community solar. It's more business to business. So part of the reason why we came to America in the first place was to build community solar projects like this proposed project. We have some that are being constructed right now in Massachusetts that basically have the same plan. Basically, we have an agreement with the local utility, in this case Con Edison, by which we'll sell, put energy directly into the grid and then sell it to subscribers that go into a subscription service with us. A plan about this size would probably have about 150 to 250 subscribers. Most of them would be local residents. Some of them would be local businesses, but part of what we do is first open it up to as local population as we can get to the plant, and then kind of extend it outwards until we fully subscribe the project. So that would be, the major sort of community benefit from this project would be to actively engage the community and have local subscribers get their electricity directly from this site.
Just explain a little bit more how that works.
Yeah, so basically we have an in-house community solar service that will they actively try and get subscribers to this specific project. The actual terms, usually you can drop out at any point, but I think it's a year is the first term that you're supposed to sign up for. If you change utility areas completely, like if you move from Westchester to upstate New York and you have National Grid, you drop out. But if you can change within Con Edison territory and still maintain the same subscription service with us the whole time.
So what is somebody who's subscribing actually paying for?
So yeah, it's not like the electrons that are being put into the grid are going directly to your house. It's a program that we have with NYSERDA and with Con Edison to sort of, it's like almost remote net metering where we're for the energy we produce at this site, we allocate it specifically towards all the subscribers that we have. So it's not like it goes directly to them in actual sense. It goes to them in kind of a theoretical sense.
Kind
Their
of like
energy
carbon
credits.
credits?
Yeah,
like that?
Similar. Yeah.
Okay. And how does it impact the bottom line?
What's the difference in the rates to the consumer?
Yeah. Usually, I mean, the guaranteed rate is 10% off your electrical bill. That's sort of like the industry standard is usually 10%.
I believe you can also pair it up with if you're in part of Westchester Power. So, a lot of, we opted in a few years ago, many communities, part of Sustainable Westchester to another power supply, another energy supplier besides Con Ed, and went out to bid, and anybody who was in Con Ed didn't have their own separate arrangement, was basically opted into Westchester Power for lower rates and 100% green electricity supply. So, but I'm pretty sure from what I understand from other community solar projects, and that's why I don't know if this would also apply, that you're still able to benefit even if you're not a Con Ed subscriber directly, if they're just responsible for your delivery, which they still are.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm a little unaware of that program, but yeah, I mean, the only program I'm really aware of is this straight up community solar program with Con Edison. Yeah.
But we're happy to look into
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to open up to questions from my board colleagues for all of you guys, and then do we want to go before we do that? I just wanted to get some, maybe Valerie, do you want to take us through a little bit more about obviously we're gonna have some questions, but maybe just some thoughts for the board as we consider what questions we want to ask. And
so this is, as you know, tonight is just preliminary discussions and preliminary presentation to the town board. So just for the town board to understand, as well as the public, this will require a full seeker process, right? So there are clearly things that have already been discussed tonight by the applicant, especially dealing with wetland buffers, trees, steep slopes, regrading, stormwater. And then clearly there's other things like construction fees and impacts. All those will be worked into the seeker process if this particular application moves forward. Another thing I just wanted to also discuss just briefly is that because this is a floating zone, clearly as Christy described, it can be applied to various locations throughout the town. And if this floating zone is not applied here, this particular piece of property is zoned R40, which is a single family district. So it is technically privately owned and it is still subdividable. So some of the issues that, that they were raising that they're going to have to deal with on site, any single family subdivision would also have to deal with very similar environmental issues as well.
Okay. So in that case, I'm going to open up to my board colleagues for questions, and then we'll go from there.
All right. All right. Well, first you can see the area through the woods. There, it's an old growth forest, so they're very tall trees. So you definitely will need a different screening plan, no matter what. Should you? Because when you look up, you can see. So there'd be, but there's always that road 133 Stormtown Road is always wet, and we know there's a wetland down there, but the road itself is always wet with potholes in that particular area. So if you were to go forward, you would need a water mitigation plan for that. There must be a spring going under the road at that point. Also,
Isn't that why it's called Brookside School, or right across the street?
well, yeah, the brook goes different direction from
Yeah.
from the pond on the other side of the street, but yeah. So there's that. My question, and I don't know if anybody can answer it, is what are the current taxes we get on the property, and what would be the benefit pilot taxes that the town would get when it was done? What's the difference in what we would, what does the town get out of taking down one of our forests, aside from access to solar, which doesn't necessarily, in my mind, have to go there?
I mean, to be honest, I'm not aware of the current taxes on the parcel that we'll be purchasing, 90 Somerston Road. There is a pilot toolkit that NYSERDA, the same group that has the draft solar law, they have one.
Well, we actually adopted a solar pilot. So
Yeah.
we have our own pilot, which I believe actually doesn't require, if it depends on the size of the system. So if it's over 1 megawatt, then there's specific formula to figure out exactly how much you would be paying in taxes.
Yeah. I mean,
So we'll look into
So I want to understand what it is and what it
taxes
would
on
be.
this lot right now as an undeveloped lot, and
What the benefit is to our community in that way. And yeah, I'm not there for cutting down the trees. I'm not there.
I was curious why this site and not something that, like something that was impervious, not wooded, not forest. Why this site?
yeah. So I'm the solar site originator for CVE in New York. So all the sites that we've been bringing in New York have usually started with me. In Austining, I heard that you guys were working on a draft law, so I just did a sort of analysis on parcels of land that were available. And this piece of land, the owner actually had already been talking with some other solar developers about possibly developing it. So when I first brought it up with him, he was pretty proactive in engaging me, and he actually thought that there was a real shot of this becoming a solar farm. But in general, yeah, it's just the size of the land, the proximity to three-phase. There's certain things that are available to developers. They have hosting capacity maps now, Con Edge, so they kind of show you where the grid can accept more energy, where it can't. And this had a very good. It's in a good position, at least for the grid, so that was a reason. But yeah, I mean, more or less, it just came down to being a large parcel with a motivated owner in a good area of the grid. Main reason.
Can you talk a little bit more about like how do you work elsewhere? Like, I mean, you talked a lot about internationally or Massachusetts or other places where, I mean, do you ever cite on already cleared property versus, I mean, it, again, one of the things that we contemplated even when we were establishing the floating zone, and as you probably recall, is that our priority would be to look at already cleared areas or parking lots and things of that nature. And we have had a couple of other applicants approach the town looking at some other sites in the town that fall more into those categories. So, I mean, maybe, I don't know if, it's an economics driven equation. If so, could you just be a little bit more explicit about that with us so we have an understanding of,
Yeah, sure. I mean,
what's real?
mostly what we do is what's called like small utility solar farms. So they're about from 1 megawatt to maybe 7 megawatts. A utility farm would be like 20 megawatts up to 100 megawatts. And then you have a lot smaller size, which is kind of CNI, commercial and industrial, which is more like a carport. Usually that's like 200 kilowatts to maybe 750 kilowatts. And then you have residential below that. So we, for community solar, it's an economic thing. You have to get a certain size to make the community solar aspect work because there is some additional cost in getting and maintaining subscribers. So to get a megawatt of solar energy in Con Edison territory or just up here in Westchester County, from what I see, you're basically going to be on, you're going to be a ground mount project. You're not going to be a rooftop project to get to this size. And that's the size that we specialize in and kind of the size that we've been targeting both here and in New York. So, that's kind of the main driver behind why we're building on sites like this.
How many trees would be cut down, and what's the plan to?
Mike.
How many trees would be cut down, and can you walk us through what the plan to mitigate that would be?
We have the tree.
Based on the survey that we had took a sample area of a 1/4 acre in.
You need to speak into the microphone though. Yeah, sorry.
Well, we could hear. No, I have a smaller version. Yeah.
Do you want to come over and use that microphone there?
No, this is fine. I just need to see the numbers. So the it was taken from a sample area of a 1/4 acre. So I used the density from that and applied it to the entire area since it's completely wooded. So it's basically an estimate. But based on what we would be removing, 3.2 acres would be around 474 trees to be replaced. And then
On
also,
site?
it didn't necessarily say that it would have to be on site. I don't believe that we'd be able to accommodate that just because it would clearly cause shading issues and the rest of the site is wooded. So we would have to look into other options.
Have a tree bank.
Tree bank.
Right.
There's a tree bank fund, and there's also, the town has been undertaking a study, aren't you, on part 2 now of
Tree inventory.
the tree
Yes,
inventory,
town tree.
looking at different locations on town land where it may be appropriate to install different types of
Yeah.
I know
vegetation.
the cemetery's hoping for some, and I'm sure the parks are too.
So, say it again? Right, and our right of ways also, yeah. So, okay. Valerie, how do we evaluate, the balance between what you talked about, like, if you were to have a regular, residential development, what would the impact be on? It's sort of the same thing. Like, how do you tell A versus B?
Well, I mean, first of all, as we go through the seeker process, they will, we can work with them to provide us some additional information on some of those different alternatives. Another thing that is possible, I mean, I was doing some really quick calculations, but once we have a little bit more information as to like the wetland areas and that type of thing, I could do like a quick, build out analysis as to how many lots. But, even if you just looked at the total site of that particular piece of property is like nine acres, technically you're 40,000 square feet. If you just did that real quick, it's 9, houses. But truthfully, I think that's more than that particular piece of property would be able to sustain. I think when you start taking away the wetlands and the steep slopes, and then also you bring in some roadway networks and stuff like that, maybe 5 lots. I mean, I can't. It's just a real rough estimate right now. But to a larger extent, large area of the property would still be developable.
I mean, I'm sure that is that something that you evaluate? Not that you have been required to yet, but is it something that you look at when you look at?
Right, so we can look at, I mean, as we go through if this process would move forward and is going through the seeker process, I mean, we can look at those different types of alternatives. Usually, when you look at alternatives to a site, it's usually part of an environmental impact statement. This particular project, I don't believe will, I mean, of course, it has to go through the seeker process and it has to have some sort of, determination made. So if it, rose to that level, then that would be looked at. But we can also incorporate it into the seeker process as part of the planning board review, just in general, just to have them probably try to provide what types of, quick calculations so the board can make those kind of comparisons.
I just want to ask, how many trees you said that you may have to take down?
470 something.
And you're going to 400 and let's just say 400 even. That's for me. But and you're going to replant them. Is that what you said?
Yeah, we would have to pay into the tree bank because I don't believe we have room on site to
That's
replant
what I
them.
was gonna ask. How can you?
No, we don't have room.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's good.
Additional questions? So just in terms of tree removal, if you could you speak a little bit about that? I mean, because I'm sure that that's not only an issue here in Ossining. Can you talk about how you deal with it elsewhere?
What's the first part of the
Tree removal.
So yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't. Most of the sites in France and Chile is where we have a lot of big ground mounts. We aren't removing trees, so it's something that was kind of new to the company. And a lot of the towns in Massachusetts, they actually didn't have tree laws to mitigate the trees that we were taking down. So we did create an internal mechanism by which we were replanting trees elsewhere that we had taken down as part of our farms. Besides that, I mean, that was basically the most we were doing on those Massachusetts sites because yes, it was a big deal taking down trees in these towns, and they didn't have tree banks we could pay into. So, but yeah, I mean, I think in this situation, obviously, we'd be more than happy to comport with the tree laws and the tree bank, and we can't replant 400 trees on this site, but we are going to be planting a lot of trees for screening. That doesn't necessarily counteract what we're taking down. But yeah, I mean, on top of that, just doing what we can to take down as little trees as we have to.
You have to take down the trees in the steep slope in between the two arrays. What was your plan to retain that land since there won't be trees there?
We were hoping to just cut the trees down and leave the stumps to stabilize the slope so that it wasn't disturbing the land, and then as the vegetation grows back, it would further stabilize it.
How much leveling do you anticipate? When we walked it, it was kind of not flat.
Yeah. It would be minimal grading because I believe they can install the racks at up to 20%
Up to,
slope.
yeah,
So it would
30%.
be, yeah, it would be very minimal grading where they are shown. And then just maybe a little where the road would be. And then for the stormwater management practices, there would be some grading, but not a significant amount.
Details of that information would be coming through the process as well.
Yeah, and I understand, as Councilwoman Feldman had mentioned, that there have been a lot of issues in the area with flooding and with water and drainage and going onto other properties, and there's some ponds nearby. So, how would you evaluate and make sure that it's not going to have a negative impact on our neighbors?
Well, in the more detailed design, we'd be doing a detailed stormwater study, and we would be mitigating how much more. I mean, we wouldn't be adding a significant amount of runoff by cutting down most of those trees, but because what you're building back is not entirely impervious, but we would be able to, do as best we can to capture what we're adding and then also try and mitigate whatever other issues are coming off of that site.
All right, and also, I just wanted to understand a little. Oh, I guess I talked. Well, I guess that sort of ties into the wetlands, which I guess you're saying, Valerie, that's also just going to be part of seeker, right? The
yes.
impact on the wetlands, the impact on the steep slopes, all of that would be part of seeker,
Yes.
and that would all happen before we determine if this is something that we think should be included in the floating zone.
Yeah, so the applicant's here preliminarily to make their application to the board. It's a legislative act, so it's up to the discretion of the board whether to consider it. If the board does want to consider it, then it would be referred to the planning board to conduct a coordinated review on behalf of all of the involved agencies who will ultimately be asked to take an action with respect to this application, which would be at the very least the planning board, the ARB, and this board, in addition to there are probably other state and county agencies that will have authority. And so the planning board would do a coordinated review, and in that process would look at all of the environmental issues that we've been discussing and would need to determine whether there's the potential for any significant adverse environmental impacts that cannot be mitigated. Only once the planning board seeker review is complete, and depending upon if and how that seeker, the findings or determinations panned out, only then could the various agencies that would have to take an action with respect to this project be able to do so. So it would only be after the seeker review is complete that the town board would hold the public hearings and go forward with considering the application for the rezoning to be included as have the floating zone applied to this specific property.
Is there a substation that's part of this? And is that something that?
Is there a battery?
Yeah.
No, just some inverters on site. There's no substation, and there's no energy storage on this site either.
And then are there are there ever issues with do we need fire suppression? I'm just curious how that works. Again, in terms of water, because I know that the issue of water had come up on this property and a couple of times.
There's at the entrance to the site there'll be a shut off switch for the fire department to flip if there was an issue on site, and then the roads are going to all be according to the fire code. So yeah.
Can you also speak to any noise issues or noise coming off of the panels?
Yeah, I don't have the exact noise information on me, and I think a noise study would be a part of this process anyways, but more or less the inverters on site do make some noise. They're not supposed to be, the decibels are supposed to be basically a quiet library when you're 200 feet away from them, which you would be if you were on the road. If you were really, I think, anywhere near this project, the closest you could be would be on the road or would be the neighboring property that we're currently working with right now. And those inverters also go off at night, so at nighttime there's no noise whatsoever.
I know I asked you this during the site visit, but there will be no lighting, no.
Yeah, there would be no lighting on the site whatsoever.
There wouldn't be a backlit forest at night.
No. It would just be a fence that again would be locked, and there'd be a switch for the firefighters. That's it.
And what about in terms of noise mitigation, like the trees versus the panels? I feel like that trees probably offer some general sound barrier from the nearby highway.
I'm not sure about that. I can look. I know we've done noise studies for all of our Massachusetts projects, so I probably have some stuff I could easily share with you guys. But yeah, I mean, the general consensus is that if you're over 100 feet away from the inverters, it's almost, you can't really hear it at all. If you were standing 10 feet away from it, you would definitely be able to hear it. But if you're outside the project area, it should basically be non-existent. But again, I can share other audio studies that we've done in the past.
I mean, I think that Councilwoman Feldman's question is probably like, the biggest one on the table, which is, and it's a little bit different. She's asking, I think, what the taxes are currently on the property versus what they would be, what the offset is to the benefit to the community would be of solar installation. I don't know if you can talk at all about, any of your statistics in terms of benefits to the environment, or what the balance is between trees and solar panels. I know that there's studies and that there are people on both sides of the argument. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, but I think that would be interesting to talk a little bit about that. And then also, if it were to be developed, I guess, into residential, which is, how it's zoned currently, the impact of whatever let's just say the minimum number of
So my
lots would
question,
be.
would
You
be,
didn't ask about the lot. You didn't
No,
ask
not
about
the
if it were developed, what the additional taxes would be on the property, and then compared to what the impact would be. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of complicated.
I might suggest, if it's okay with the town board, that, because some of these things will take a little bit of calculations and a little bit of additional research on their end, that maybe some of these initial questions that you have dealing with the pilots and a little bit with the noise, as well as, some of the, with the steep slopes, with the stumps, if there's potential, potentially landscaping that could be done between the two different sections. Maybe some of these initial questions we can work with the applicant to come back to the board with, so that you have a little bit more information than they're able to provide tonight. And then that gives you a little bit more comfort, or maybe a little bit more of an informed decision one way or the other.
so I'm kind of looking for the balance, even if it was developed, if you put, let's say, the 5 houses, I know you could take the number 5 and multiply it by the average house size, and that's a good enough number for me to just, ballpark it. I don't need them to go into all kinds of calculations, honestly. But the balance I'm looking for, not only is, CO2 out of the atmosphere because of the solar array, and what do trees provide as far as making oxygen, cleaning carbon dioxide out of the air, also retaining the soil. There's a quality of life benefit to our community with wooded areas in general, in my mind. Habitat, things like that. I mean, there's a big balance here, and I really would like to understand what would the community get out of it, trading, a wooded area, or, and all of these benefits that the trees would provide. And what's the tax potential if it was developed as it is currently zoned, as compared to what the proposal is.
Those are all good questions. Do you have any other questions? Anybody on the board? Okay, so
Maybe I'll reach out to the applicant and supply them the questions that we discussed tonight.
I think that sounds like a plan. And yeah, and if I do have any additional questions, then I'll get those to you as well.
Okay, yes, absolutely. I
Okay.
mean, why don't I, I'll reach out.
Somebody send us questions.
Yes, we did get some questions, so we can look and see what ones of those are applicable at this early stage of the application process, and see if we can have those addressed as well.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So, and then what would be the next step in terms of, public input, and how we bring the community in on this to hear from the community?
Well, I mean, I think it would be useful to have some more information from the applicant, as Valerie suggested, to coordinate, and then once you have that information and have an ability to talk about it and digest it, then you can discuss how you want to handle those next steps. I mean, the normal process would be, if the board is comfortable with having the application move forward, then it would go to the planning board, and as part of the planning board review, there would be the opportunity for public comment, but we can certainly discuss alternate methods if that's what the board's interested in.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any comments about that? Thoughts about that? They want to discuss work session?
I think it's better to get a temperature of our community before making them go through hoops.
Right. Well, I think that that's true too, that we want to, get some feedback from the community, but I think maybe if we could get a little bit more information, because I think that a lot of the questions that, that the board raised tonight were certainly some of the questions that we know that the community's going to be interested in knowing answers to. And if we can get those questions answered first and then have an opportunity maybe to get a sense of, what the community's feeling, and we can have another opportunity to come back and address that a little bit further. Okay, great. All right, so thanks so much for that, and we will talk to you again in the near future. Okay, so, and next up, an important topic is our discussion of our comprehensive plan steering committee appointments. And we'll just talk a little bit about that. About 2 weeks ago, we held interviews with people that had responded with an application during our call for applications in December to.
Second to clear out.
Okay. Thanks so much. Have a great night, everybody. Who's leaving and those who are staying. Okay. So, hi, Dave Whitlinger. Thanks for taking a picture of me in the middle of the meeting. Nice to see you. Okay, well, it was just aimed right. It was like aimed right in the center. So, hello. About 2 weeks ago, we held interviews with people that had responded with an application during our call for applications in December to sit on the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee. The interviews were conducted by Councilwoman Shaw, Planning Board member Gareth Huffam, Assessor Fernando Gonzalez, Budget Officer Victoria Caparelli, and myself. Since we have not yet notified all of the applicants of their application status, we are not going to discuss specific names tonight, but I just wanted to bring the board and the community up to speed on how the decision-making process was determined. Following a suggestion that we received from Tiffany Zazula from Pace University, who is our public engagement specialist, each interviewer shared with the group their choices for who would comprise their ideal committee, bearing in mind that the board is seeking geographic distribution among the town. Representatives from committees like Green Ossining and the Environmental Advisory Committee, as well as candidates with significant ties to various aspects of our community. These recommendations were ranked, and those candidates that received 3 or more votes will be recommended to the board for appointment at next week's legislative session. We also discussed inviting both villages and school districts to send a representative to our steering committee meetings to serve in an ex officio capacity and ensure that the lines of communication between the town and these groups, especially the Village of Ossing's Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee, remains strong. So that's pretty much where we are right now. I want to just know if any of my board colleagues have any questions or comments about this topic.
I just wanted to thank all the people who came out and were interviewed, just being a part of the community and the unincorporated town, and it was a good showing. So thank you very much.
And know that even if you're not one of the steering committee members, we actually do want to work closely with each and every person, not only who showed up to be part of the steering committee, but the whole community. There will be outreach, and we do want to hear from everybody.
But we were particular in terms of the appointments that I believe everybody who is not in either representing a business or a business organization does live in the unincorporated town. And also we do not believe that we actually had applicants from every maybe group in our community that we think would be important. So we're going to make sure that we reach all the groups in our community also by having
like stakeholders or focus groups.
Stakeholders or focus groups that will be part of the comprehensive plan process. So I just wanted to make sure that that's clear, that it's not like we're not going to exclude any groups even if they didn't apply to be or have a representative from a group. And some people have a number of different hats that they wear, that they're we feel that they're representative of, and or one of the most important parts of this is not just one-way communication right into the comprehensive plan, but the communication back out into the community. So many of the applicants have, again, different groups or organizations or jobs that they have as part of their lives, and this is an opportunity for them to share back out the work of the steering committee and the comprehensive plan steering committee. So next week we'll have the list of names, and we'll be reaching out to all of the applicants this week to let them know in advance of anticipated appointments next week who has sort of made it into the group. We also did have a size of a group that was recommended, and I think that we are kind of like verging on the maximum of the size of the group, but we did our best to keep it as maintained as we could. So I think we'll have an excellent group, and we again thank everybody who did apply. So no other comments. All right, so next I just want to talk very briefly that we, as mentioned earlier in my announcements, are on the cusp of launching our food scrap program, or food scrap collection program. We have a few items to address before we can officially start selling the kits and accepting food scraps for composting. We received recommendations from our Deputy Comptroller, Dale Ferreira, regarding the fees for the kits and the materials such as the compostable bags, as well as the credit card processing fees for each item that we plan to sell. And I'm going to turn it over to Budget Officer Victoria Caffarelli to walk us through Ms. Ferreira's recommendations.
Yes, okay, so yes, we all have that recommendations. It's really only 2 items at this point. I'm not sure if in the future we'll consider selling additional items that relate to this program, but we're starting with the food scrap kit, which is for residential homeowners, or I guess business owners could purchase them as well. It contains.
It doesn't have to be a homeowner.
It doesn't have to be a homeowner. It's
just anybody who is a resident.
Yes, residential kits.
Yes.
So they include 13-gallon bins, as well as 2-gallon countertop pails that you can start collecting your food scraps on your countertop, as well as the compostable bags that go along with the smaller bins. The larger bins, the purpose is for then bringing your food scraps to Cedar Lane Park to drop them off. So the cost that we're looking to sell these kits at are $20, which are reflective of the costs associated with purchasing the materials for that kit. You'll also receive a little reminder sticker. These are the things you can put in your pail, as well as a guide with some more information about how to effectively participate in the program. So the $20 reflects the cost associated with all those different items. As we mentioned, our Deputy Comptroller reached out to our credit card processor, which has certain fees associated with processing credit card and debit card transactions. She's working very closely with them to make sure we get a very accurate amount, and it's going to cost about an additional $1 to process credit card and debit card transactions associated with the $20 kit. Additionally, we're going to be making available for sale the compostable bags for the 2-gallon bins, which cost approximately $2 for us to purchase. Of course, we're purchasing in bulk quantity, so this helps get a discount to our residents, as well as ensuring that residents are using the proper bags for this program. Compostable and biodegradable are 2 different things. Biodegradable bags do not work in commercial composting facilities, but the compostable bags that we purchased do. So we'll be selling them at $2 per roll of 25 bags. And the credit card and debit card processing fees associated with that is 25 cents. So if the board has any additional questions about this, otherwise we'll look to have a resolution to add this to our fee schedule so that we can start selling these kits and getting people involved in this exciting program.
And the only thing I would like to say, first of all, thank you to Victoria Caffarelli, because you really spearheaded this, and I appreciate all the hard work that you've done. And we do have somebody who we hired, and this was a grant from the DEC, through the DEC, and actually through the consolidated funding application process that we, nope. Okay, sorry. We have
Environmental Protection Fund.
Environmental Protection Fund that we received, I think, last year, and finally got the contract. So we then we're able to put into position an actual part-time staff person who is going to be overseeing the bins to make sure that they are being properly utilized. We will all, the bins again are going to be at Cedar Lane Park in the parking area past the organic garden, community garden. And they don't take up very much room at all. They take up like maybe a parking space or two, I think at the most. So they're going to be kind of towards the back. And there'll be certain times when you'll be able to purchase the kits. T-Town will also be selling the kits, and T-Town is our partner in terms of education. Green Ossining is also helping with assembling the kits through their volunteer program, and we'll have more information also at our Earth Day Festival about this. But besides that, you'll be able to get these little kits, and they've been vetted thoroughly for a long time now by the folks in Scarsdale, who really took the initiative to get food scrap recycling started in Westchester County, and they've been helping all of the other programs throughout Westchester County get up to speed, and they gave us a lot of guidance about signage, which they had already developed, and location, and the types of bins to purchase so that you get the least amount of smell, the types of bags that work, and the way that we can do this and make it something real, and also educate our public about how much food actually takes up in our waste stream and how much better it would be if we could compost it and put it back into the earth in a positive way. So we're hoping that it's also going to reduce the overall cost of our refuse tipping fees, as well as just be an overall benefit for everybody who participates in it, because then you start to see for yourself what your food waste looks like, and you can see if you can reduce that too. So those are all the benefits. But as far as the fees are concerned, we just wanted to have this brief discussion with the board, because we'd like to put it on the agenda for next week to approve to add to our fee schedule.
So we're not really making any money. We're passing along the costs. It's good by me.
Absolutely, 100% passing along the costs, and we have to charge for the credit card fees, because that's what we're required to do as a municipality. So, any other questions? Okay. So with that, may I have a motion to adjourn to executive session for advice of counsel, personnel, and contracts?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Good night, everybody.